The real duel of Apollo with Marsyas, absolute year versus immense range, takes place in the evening, when, as we already know, the judges have awarded victory to the god. Bound tight to a tree, meticulously stripped of his skin, Marsyas howls. Before the howl reaches his tall ears, he reposes in the shadow of that howl. Shaken by a shudder of disgust, Apollo is cleaning his instrument. Only seemingly is the voice of Marsyas monotonous and composed of a single vowel, ah. In reality, Marsyas relates the inexhaustible wealth of his body. Bold mountains of liver, wide ravines of alignment, rustling forests of lung, sweet hillocks of muscle, joints, bile, blood and shudders, the winter wind of bone over the salt of memory. Shaken by a shudder of disgust, Apollo is cleaning his instrument. Now to the chorus is joined the backbone of Marsyas. In principle the same ah, only deeper, with the addition of rust. This is already beyond the endurance of the god with nerves of artificial fiber. Along a gravel path, hedged with bogs, the victor departs, wondering whether out of Marsyas howling there will not someday arise a new kind of art, let us say, concrete. Suddenly, at his feet, falls a petrified nightingale. He looks back and sees that the hair of the tree to which Marsyas was fastened is white, completely. I went to Greece to experience landscapes and art. I thought the Greek landscape would be similar to the Italian one, but no sooner had I seen the first islands, precipitous Peloponnesus shore, and finally the Gulf of Corinth, then I knew that I would experience something peerless. That landscape, owing to its nature, is beyond description. No Greece can be untangled from that combination of blueness, mountains, air and light. It can be claimed that it is always the case when it comes to such a diverse landscape. But here, it is not only about the richness of landscape. One of the strongest sensations I experienced in Greece was the sensation of movement, as if eyes were still watching the painful drama of the birth of the earth. The outline of lands and seas was formed last. The landscape is not only in front of us, but also at the sides and behind. I could feel its intensive presence. This is the agent of the Greek intelligence alias Sophocles. He became famous for unmasking the communist Antigone. Of course, I'm kidding. This is the Greek sailor I drank with till dawn in Piraeus. I felt some remorse for sending him for a pack of cigarettes at 4 a.m. It took him a long time, but he got them. Mycenae. often draw. Usually with the pen, sometimes with the pencil. It helps me look at landscape or pieces of art and remember the details. There is a megaron in the center of the Mycenae Palace. A separate, rather dark room that could hold the king and councils planning looting expeditions. The most striking feature of that architectural design is stuffiness. The feeling of being trapped in the tight armor of the walls. The crime scene and the place of tragedy of the Atridi. Augustus is sleeping, snoring off the walls. The blood on the stones has dried up a little. Electra is yawning, 5 o'clock. Yokes waits the shoulders down. Goes down the stairs to cistern, where nocturnal humidity like a bat. And before bucket blurs water, father's huge eyes in the water full of fear. Without scream, talks Agamemnon with daughter. Washing all day, heaps of laundry, blood has clotted on the sheets. In the evening feast, Clytemnestra, beautiful as ever. They drink heavily, cry and laugh and cry again. In the corner stammers blind Bard. Epics is old and used up, as if spike harrow glided over bones. Faint voice litters on the stones in the deep darkness of Megaron. And then, to feel more gaily, they bring corpses from underground, drag to tables, pour wine to non-existent throats. There will be a moment of silence when powerful reek of wine will bend the necks. The dead and the murderers will be reconciled by the shadow which takes the axe from the wall. I refuse. I refuse. I won't tell a word about my friends or acquaintances, neither about those who live in the country, nor those who live abroad. I refuse. Someday, when I want to send greetings to Czesław Miłosz, for instance, or confide in him, I will send the letter or make a call. It will be normal as everywhere. Or, strictly speaking, as it should be everywhere. It's fresh. Could be today's. Covered in thick blood, big as a sea fish. He carries it to market, sprinkles with salt, hawks with a loud voice. It's fresh. Could be today's. These purple veins don't mean anything. They approach, feel with fingers, shake their heads. When he hides it in his chest, then he really feels it's fresh, still warm. It's fresh. Could be today's. Shamelessly big. Who will buy a wound? I know. You can refuse to give me my passport. Yes, the impossibility of going west is doing us a lot of harm. But what can be done? I was supposed to go to Spoleto once. the pederastic snobbish festival of poetry. You wanted to give me my passport on the last day, but I refused, because you didn't give a passport to Słonimski, who was supposed to go with me. I did it on principle. As a poet, he's indifferent to me, but he's brave and gracious in what he does. I have never talked to him, and his poetic formations commander is completely unfamiliar to me. Then I tried to go to Bled, Köln, Stockholm. I was refused again. Finally, there was a deputation of government officials sent to Rome for Comes, a fishy organization. It was announced in the newspapers. The tickets were bought. You gave me the passport. And I didn't go in order to accentuate that I can go wherever I want to go. There was a scandal. I know, it's a fight like of a bull with a locomotive steam. Crete. The best way to go to Crete is straight from Mycenae. The idea is not taken from bus timetable, because the two don't even have the direct connection. But if one closed their eyes in Mycenae and opened in Knossos, they would get a shock and understand crucial differences between the style and spirit of the two centers of Mediterranean culture. The most well-known Greek legend connected to Crete is the story of Minotaur. In the Cretan iconography, there is no image of Minotaur, but image of bull is very common. The bull was never shown as a creepy monster, but as a victim, or an animal taking part in games and fairs. The Greek art does not represent Minotaur as a disgusting or terrifying character either. I remember quite well a beautiful amphora in the Aegean black-figured style, decorated with an unequal fight between Theseus and the animal. The easy victory of the man. Minotaur is on his knees. Theseus is seizing the opponent's neck with his left arm, while stabbing his neck with a short knife. Poor Minotaur. I have always had for him more feelings than for Theseus, Daedalus, or any other wise guys. When my father told me this story for the first time, my heart ached with sympathy for half animal, half human, fettered by labyrinth, and human's tricky and difficult story. The true history of the Prince Minotaur is told in the script Linear A, which has not yet been deciphered. Notwithstanding later gossip, he was the authentic son of King Minos and Pasiphae. The boy was born healthy, but with an abnormally large head, which the fortune tellers interpreted as the sign of future wisdom. In reality, with the years, Minotaur grew into a strong and somewhat melancholy nitwit. The king decided to turn him over to the priesthood, but the priests explained that they couldn't admit the abnormal prince because it would lower the authority of religion, which had already been damaged by the invention of the wheel. Consequently, Minos brought over an engineer fashionable in Greece, Daedalus, created of a noted branch of pedagogical architecture. This is how the labyrinth was built, by a system of corridors from the simplest to the more complicated, by a difference in levers and staircase of abstraction, It was supposed to initiate Prince Minotaur into the principles of correct thinking. So the miserable prince mooned about in the corridors of induction and deduction pushed by his preceptors. He looked at the instructive frescoes with a vacant stare. He didn't understand a thing. When King Minos had exhausted all his resources, he decided to get rid of the disgrace to the family. He brought over also from Greece, which was famous for capable people, the skillful murderer Theseus, and Theseus killed Minotaur. On this point, myth and history are in agreement. Through the labyrinth, by now an unnecessary school primer, Theseus returns carrying the huge blood-stained head of Minotaur, its eyes bulging, where for the first time wisdom began to sprout, which is usually brought by experience. What makes Cretan art great is not architecture. Frescoes, excluding even inadequate reconstructions or sculpture or lack of monumental sculpture, but small statuettes made of clay and faience, dazzling pottery, engraved semi-precious gems, seals and jewelry, as if life of Minos Island was only fun, superficial game, careless, lacking in ecstasy, passion or pain. The pebble is a perfect creature, equal to itself, mindful of its limits, filled exactly with the pebbly meaning, with a scent that does not remind one of anything, does not frighten anything away, does not arouse desire. Its ardor and coldness are just and full of dignity. I feel a heavy remorse when I hold it in my hand, and its noble body is permeated by false warmth. Pebbles cannot be tamed. To the end they will look at us with a calm and very clear eye. I know you can unleash a pack of hacks on me, or just hush me. Well, I had been silent until 1956, so I can be silent now. I will wait for the next thaw. Good night, Marcus. Put out the light and shut the book. For overhead is raised the gold alarm of stars. Heaven is talking some foreign tongue. This barbarian cry of fear, your Latin cannot understand. Terror, continuous dark terror, against the fragile human land begins to beat. It's winning. Hear its roar. Its unrelenting stream of elements will drown your prose until the world's four walls go down. As for us, to tremble in the air, blow in the ashes, stir the ether, gnaw our fingers, seek vain words, drag off the fallen shades behind us. Well, Marcus, better hang up your piece, give me your hand across the dark. Let it tremble when the blind word beats on senses five like on a failing lyre. Traitors, universe and astronomy, reckoning of stars, wisdom of grass, and your greatness too immense. And Marcus, my defenseless tears. This poem, entitled to Mark Aurelo, was printed in the Common Weekly twice, but the censorship confiscated the issue both times. I dedicated it to my professor Henrik Erzenberg. Don't put it down, he's dead, and you can't do him any harm. Then I wanted to print it without dedication. Now, this poem with the dedication can be found in the official publications of my poetry. Time flies, gentlemen. There is one Mark Aurelo's thought: don't live as if you were supposed to live 10,000. Fate hangs upon you. Live your life as long as you are given time to do it. Be good. For whom do I play? For the closed windows? For the door handle shining arrogantly? For the bassoon of rain? For the sad rain pipes? For the rats dancing among the dead? The last drum was bombs. In the courtyard there was a simple funeral. 2 planks in a cross and a helmet full of holes. In the sky, a great rows of fires. The calf turns on the spit. In the oven, the brown bread ripens. Fires die out. Only the flame which is constrained lasts forever. And the coarse inscription on those planks. Short names like a volley. Gryf, Wilk and Pocisk. Who remembers? Faded in rain, the color of ore. For long years afterwards we laundered the bandages. Now no one cries. The buttons from a soldier's coat rattle in a matchbox. Throw away memories, burn remembrance, and enter the stream of a new life. There is only earth, one earth, and the seasons of the year are over it. Wars of insects, wars of people, and short death on the flower of honey. The grain ripens, the oaks flourish, rivers go from mountains to the ocean. I flow upstream, and they with me. They look in the eye implacably. They stubbornly whisper old words. We eat our bitter bread of despair. I must carry them to a dry place and make a large mound of sand before spring strews flowers for them, and a great green dream stupefies them. This city, there is no such city. It has gone under the earth. It still shines, like rotten wood in the forest, an empty place. But the air above it continually tremble after those voices. The ditch where a mud river flows, I call the Vistula. It's hard to confess. They have sentenced us to such love. They have pierced us through with such a fatherland. In the corner of the old map, there is a country I miss so much. It's the homeland of apples, hills, lazy rivers, tart wine and love. Unfortunately, huge spider spun its web on it, and with sticky saliva closed the toll gate of dreams. It's always like this. Angel with flaming sword, spider, conscience. I was wondering why you eventually gave me my passport back. I understood quickly. You gave me the passport, but I couldn't buy any apartment in any way. You figured it out that if I don't have a place to live with my wife and ailing mother, eventually I would emigrate. Leave the place where I don't belong to. I didn't emigrate. Miłosz? Yes, this time I feel like telling something. After giving the Nobel Prize to Miłosz, one Polish critic, available as insiders claim, I rather think a rioter plagued by persecution complex and therefore deserving leniency, stated authoritatively and publicly that it is a political act, which means it has nothing to do with art. Unfortunately, he didn't explain what dark forces or other spy agencies influenced the members of Swedish Royal Academy so strongly that they announced a verdict that was against their will. For me, Czesław Miłosz was and is one of the greatest writers of the 20th century, and surely the most brilliant poet writing in Polish. I know I am incurring my colleagues' anger. The truth can be bitter. The pathetic critic got what he deserved, as it happens very often to toadies. Because the officials didn't believe in conspiracy theory, they behaved tactfully and didn't force the laureate to give any ideological declarations. They didn't intervene in the schedule or character of his first visit in our country after 30 years of absence. Miłosz came as a private person. I spoke with the poet briefly, on about a minute, because hungry crowds of pilgrims pressed from all sides. I guess my first word was, "Thank you." Not brilliant, but awkward and helpless. But later I thought that it wasn't so stupid as I had thought at first. Czesław Miłosz deserves gratitude for the fact that he faced bravely masses of genuine enthusiasts of his works and those who had earlier written via labels, little poems and stories such as "Before he will be forgotten." We remember. We remember. Now the enemies, as being rodents, discreetly back away into their burrows. All these issues are side effects. What is important is hope that Miłosz's books, already written, and those which are to be written in the future, will be published in our country. A daring Polish literature scholar who will want to write an essay on the basis of his works won't lose his job. to Czesław Miłosz. Over the San Francisco Bay, the starlight. In the morning fog which divides the world into two. And no one knows which is better, more important, and which worse. Even in whisper, no one can think that are the same. Angels descend heaven, hallelujah, when puts his slanted, tinted blue letters. Are you completely mad? I refuse. Since I was 18, I have changed really, really little. I learned other languages. I read many books. I visited many cities and museums. But a few fundamental old truths of human heart have stayed the same. I gave my word. I was very young. The reason was telling me not to give my word. I could safely say, I will think it over. No rush. It is not bus timetable. I will give my word after the maturity exam, after military service, when I built my house. But the time exploded. There was no before, there was no after. In blinding now, I had to choose. So I gave my word. A word and noose on my neck, final word. At those rare moments when everything becomes light and turns into sloppiness, I'm thinking, I give my word, I would gladly take given word back. It lasts short, because axis of the word screeches, people passing, landscapes, colorful time rings, and word given got stuck in my throat. After my last return to Poland, I saw it like I had always wanted to see. Poland of dignified people, proud of their country, amiable, smiling, trusting, not denounced, not involved in imaginary war of classes. Poland I saw was of humanized people. I was living here the occupancy, and I wouldn't have had much chance of surviving if it hadn't been for the awareness of community. To say it more precisely, I could find a place to hide when I was persecuted, and this hospitality might have cost someone their life. I had this understanding during the Stalinism period as well, but now it's even stronger and more real. History is in the hands of a man who stands upright, has regained his honor and his dignity, and can't be humiliated. That man will not be easily cornered. Hellenic, Roman, medieval, Indian, Elizabethan, Italian, French above all, a little Weimar and Versailles. We bear so many our homelands on one back of one earth, but the one who is guarded by number the most singular, it's here, where we are tramped into the ground, or with a spade which clanks, quite a big hole will be dug for nostalgia. I think that Poland belongs, despite everything, despite all what had happened, to Mediterranean culture. I'm attached to this culture, and I would like to bring from my journeys not only accounts about paintings, sculptures, cathedrals, but also document my and all nations' connections with sources of our civilization. It had been like this for centuries, since Kochanowski's Renaissance travels or even earlier. This is my conscious choice, political or apolitical, it doesn't matter for me. I was brought up in this culture, and I would like to maintain, insofar as my talent and stamina lets me, the connection between Poland and Ferrara, Prague, Bologna, Heidelberg, Oxford. I am doing it alone, instinctively, without instructions, hoping naively that by writing sincerely and with enthusiasm, I will infect the reader with this enthusiasm. Years ago, during my first visit in the Royal Museum in Amsterdam, when I walking by a great married couple by horse and a beautiful wedding by Deister, I came across a paint by an unknown painter for me. I got it right away, although it would be difficult to explain rationally that something important, essential happened. Something more than accidental encounter in the crowd of masterpieces. How to describe this inner state? Awakened sharp curiosity, assiduous attention, alarmed senses, hope of adventure, agreement to enlightenment, as if someone called me, beckoned me. The painting was etched in my memory for many years to come, clear, persistent, although it wasn't an image of a face with a striking gaze or a dramatic scene, but peaceful, static, still life. Still life with a beat. The name of the painter Torrentius. And then I started to look it up in different art histories. The information about life of Dutch artists is scarce. Torrentius was apparently handsome, clad with elaborate elegance, had sumptuous lifestyle, possessed a butler and a horse. What is worse, he was surrounded by a lot of admirers and friends with whom, like Dionysos' leading group of satyrs, went from city to city throwing noisy and not quite decent feasts. And about the painting, Torrentius's still life is an allegory of one fundamental virtue called temperance. In Latin, temperantia soprosine. This interpretation is imposed by represented objects. A bit reigns of passion, plates which give shape to formless liquids, and a half-full goblet, as if it reminded us of a noble Greek custom mixing water with wine. Torrentius's still life with a bit is an allegory of restraint, work of great discipline, self-knowledge and order, somehow contradictory with his crazy existential experience. But only simpletons and naive moralists demand exemplary harmony of work and life from the artists. But having a lot of failures and breakdowns in their career, the role of Dutch painters in society, their place on the earth, cannot be questioned. Nobody asked why art exists, because the world without paintings would be implausible. We are poor, very poor. The best part of contemporary art believes in chaos, gestures in the emptiness, or speaks of the history of its own barren soul. Old masters believed in the sense of their work. Possibility of mutual human understanding. They affirmed visible reality with inspired meticulousness and childlike seriousness, as if world order, star revolutions, and stability of the firmament depended on it. Bless this naivety. It didn't require great character at all, our refusal, disagreement and resistance. We had a shred of necessary courage, but fundamentally it was a matter of taste. Yes, taste, in which there are fibers of soul, the cartilage of conscience. Who knows if we had been better and more attractively tempted, sent rose-skinned women thin as a wafer, or fantastic riches from the paintings of Hieronymus Bosch. But what kind of hell was there at this time? A wet pit? The murderer's alley? Barrack called a palace of justice? A home-brewed Mephisto in a Lenin jacket sent Aurora's grandchildren out into the field. The boys with potato faces, very ugly girls with red hands. Verily the rhetoric was made of cheap sacking. Marcus Tullius kept turning in his grave. Chain of tautologies, a couple of concepts like flails, dialectics of slaughterers, no distinction in reasoning, syntax deprived of beauty of the subjunctive. So aesthetics can be helpful in life. One should not neglect the study of beauty. Before we declare our consent, we must carefully examine the shape of the architecture, the rhythm of the drums and pipes, official colors, the despicable ritual of funerals. Our eyes and ears refused obedience. The princess of our senses proudly chose exile. It did not require great character at all. We had a shred of necessary courage, but fundamentally it was a matter of taste. Yes, taste, which commands us to get out, to make a wry face, draw out a sneer. Even if for this, the precious capital of the body, the head, must fall. It is hard to say if I can give something, cooperate. But My presence now and here means admission. Nation cannot be divided into intellectuals, workers, peasants, Jews, Poles, Russian, but everyone who lives here, if they have a vocation for participation, should volunteer and register. Never did I want to live forever, nor came back only because the change of some minister. I live the life I have in my hands. I want to deal as well as I can with my small personal history, although it will be forgotten and rendered unimportant. I have an inborn respect for people who do something different than I do. In my job, I have to be as honest as them. Only by this way can we meet. And this is the basis of my sense of solidarity. I know this word is overused, but it is beautiful. Solidarity, based on the fact that I will try in my field not to lie, to speak what my love is, to defend man's honor and dignity. Nothing else. Go where those others went, to the dark boundary, for the golden fleece of nothingness, your last prize. Go upright among those who are on their knees, among those with their backs turned, and those toppled in the dust. You were saved not in order to live. You have little time. You must give testimony. Be courageous when the mind deceives you. Be courageous in the final account, only this is important. And let your helpless anger be like the sea, whenever you hear the voice of the insulted and beaten. Let your sister's scorn not leave you. For the informers, executioners, cowards, they will win. They will go to your funeral, with relief will throw a lump of earth. The wood borer will write your smooth-over biography. And do not forgive. Truly it is not in your power to forgive in the name of those betrayed at dawn. Beware, however, of unnecessary pride. Keep looking at your clown's face in the mirror. Repeat, I was cold. Weren't there better ones than I? Beware of dryness of heart. Love the morning spring, the bird with an unknown name, the winter oak, light on a wall, the splendor of the sky. They don't need your warm breath. They are there to say, no one will console you. Be vigilant. When the light on the mountains gives the sign, arise and go as long as blood turns in the breast your dark star. Repeat all the incantations of humanity, fables and legends, because this is how you will attain the good you will not attain. Repeat great words, repeat them stubbornly, like those crossing the desert who perished in the sand. And they will reward you with what they have at hand, with a whip of laughter, with murder on a garbage heap. Go, because only in this way you will be admitted to the company of cold schools, to the company of your ancestors, Gilgamesh, Hector, Roland, the defenders of the kingdom without limit, and the city of ashes. Be faithful, go. Where are you, gentlemen? Where are you, God's chosen ones in blue shirts? Throughout all Stalinism years, also after Stalin's death till 1957, I couldn't find work anywhere. After 3 months, I would be fired from different shabby pit offices, disabled cooperatives, as a class enemy. In 1950, through the intercession of Kisielewski, I went to Andrzej Micewski, grey eminence or albino of the Pax Union, who took pity on me, offered me an apartment and a job at the Pax High School for the price of a membership in the Federation of Patriots Priests. The name I give is incorrect, but it used to be quite a powerful organization, aspiring for controlling clergy and taking it away from the influence of the primate. I hesitated, and then I destroyed already signed agreement. Micewski discreetly left the room. This way still was hardened. I was thinking, I know her well. We have been living together for so many years. I know Bert's head, white shoulders and a belly. Till once on winter's evening, she sat by me, and in the light of lamp I saw a pink ear. Funny yellow lobe, shell with living blood inside. I said nothing then. It would be good to write a poem about a pink ear, but not the kind so they would say, what an idea he has chosen, pretending to be original, to prevent any smiles, to make them understand that I reveal a secret. I said nothing then, but at night, when we were lying together, I gently tried the exotic taste of a pink ear. By some strange coincidence, after a week, 4 militia officers came to my place. As my place, I mean the room which I shared unofficially with my friend Władysław Walczykiewicz and his brother. Because I couldn't register in Warsaw because I was unemployed, and I was unemployed because etc. Militia officers threw my books into some sack, put me onto the truck, and threw me out on the road near Brwinów. A year and a half I spent there in that room, which was outhouse to the barn. Hence my eternal affection for cars. It's really inconvenient to be sent, gentlemen. However, I don't consider myself as a saint. I'm all made of dark matter, with short, bright flashes in my brain. I said to Jacek Trznadel in an interview that I had an internal mechanism that defended me against totalitarian system. There was something like this. but it had something to do with my unique situation. If, let's say, in 1945, Mr. Putrament came to me and tried to persuade me to join the Communist Party, or his Association of Men of Letters, I think, hypothetically, of course, that I would refuse the party, but not the association. In 1948, everything was clear, and then I voluntarily left the association. I was a candidate for a member, and I worked on the coast along with a group of ex-Home Army soldiers and soldiers from Western countries and camps. I was aware of the potential consequences of my deeds. But the real consequences were beyond belief. My only merit is that I didn't torment magazines with my literary attempts. I didn't admit that I was writing poems since 1943. If I had stayed in the association, I wouldn't have possibly written the poem about Stalin. But I would have created poems about attractions of Western regained lands. I would have lived prosperously. I would have an apartment, wife, children, and blissful awareness that I am clean. Lady Castellan of my fingers, queen of my hair, mistress of pain spots of my enormous skin, angel of my rib, taken away so sneakily when I slept, having folded wings of my shoulders, on a long cord of my intestines, on a black throat of my hunger, on pipes of my lungs, on the drum of my stomach, there lies over a pebble of silence. Bound by a rope of my dream, I will drag you. Ant-like touch will open powdery body cavity. And since then, there will be one breath and one flag-like scream from the tall tower of spine. The worst at that time was clear perception of the nonsense of all that life. Total loneliness and frequent doubt that they may be right. My only friends in Warsaw were my host and irreplaceable friend Władysław Walczykiewicz, clerk in the Ministry of Foreign Trade. And above all, Leopold Tyrmand, who supported me morally and financially. I took his example in moral conduct. And frankly, I don't know if I had survived those dark times without him. There were also Stefan Kisielewski, Zdzisław Najder, Zygmunt Kubiak. I recall all of them with most deep gratitude. I'm thinking now, shamefully seldom, about my first big abandon. I avoid carefully everything what can induce flurry of memories. the places where we met, street corners, landscapes, benches, trees, the window where our light burned. I'm forgetting gradually, but inevitably, the color of her eyes. What is left lies now in a card box. Photo negatives, our pictures with no faces. If someone slid index finger over the sharp edge of a negative, warm blood would trickle. A friend told me that my first big lives alone now, excluding the company of the sea. She is blind and she weaves. What is she weaving on chariot looms? For me, she is like an empty platform, like absolute irreversibility, like reflective drowning victim in a head pulled over ears, who floats with face turned from the world, like night in front of a mirror. I never liked to put on martyrs, gluttons, or victims' robes. I was never a victim because I chose to fight. And you can lose when you fight. I like boxers' terminology very much. I'm a great amateur of boxing in life and art. I want to believe that people of goodwill, who have trust in themselves, who forgive harm done to them, who are Christians or sincere agnostics. I'm such a person who believes, then lives, and then believes again. I therefore believe that those people can unite and respond to the challenge of history. They won't snatch power from someone else, but they will start cleaning up at their own yard, university, editorial office, factory, household. They will get rid of dirt, evil, and lies. Owing to this, our nation will last, whatever happens then. I want to believe in that. I know that if you want to be free, you have to come to terms with discomforts of freedom. And it sometimes happens that freedom takes its toll. I believe in union of reason and will. Our nation hasn't stood the chance of surviving for many dozens of years, or even more. But it has survived. Our people communicate well. I think the flow of information is possible without television or the press. Besides, we know a lot about each other. We recognize and we can distinguish what's aggression, occupancy, rape, hate from what is good. I believe in that. The favorite amusement of Mr. Cogito is the game Kropotkin. It has many merits, the game Kropotkin. It liberates historical imagination, the feeling of solidarity. It is played in the fresh air, the bounce in dramatic episodes. Its rules are noble, despotism always loses. On the big board of the imagination, Mr. Cogito sets the pieces. The king designates Peter Kropotkin in the Pietropavlovsk fortress. The bishops are free soldiers and the sentry. The castle is the carriage of escape. Mr. Cogito can choose among many roles. He can play beautiful Sofia Nikolaevna. She smuggles the plan of escape in a watch case. He can also be the violinist in the grey cottage, especially rented opposite the prison, who plays the abduction from the Serglio, which means the street is clear. Most of all, however, Mr. Cogito likes the role of Dr. Orestes Weimar. At the dramatic moment, he distracts the soldier at the gate by talking. Ever see a microbe, Vanya? Never seen one. And the beast is crawling on your skin. Don't say it, sir. Yes, it creeps and has a tail. Big? 3 or 4 versts. Then the fair cap falls on the sheepish eyes. And already the game Kropotkin is moving rapidly along. The king prisoner runs with great bounds. He struggles for a moment with his flannel bathrobe. The violinist in the grey cottage plays the abduction from the Serglio. Voices are heard to catch him. Dr. Orestes spins on about microbes. Beating of the heart, hobnailed boots on the pavement. At last, the courage of escape. The bishops can't move. Mr. Cogito is happy as a child. Again, he has won the game Kropotkin. So many years, for so many years, Mr. Cogito plays. But never was he attracted by the role of the hero of the escape. Not because of dislike for the blue blood of the prince of the anarchists, nor abhorrence for his theory of reciprocal aid, nor is it due to cowardice. Sofia Nikolaevna, the violinist in the grey cottage, Dr. Orestes, also risked their heads. With them, however, Mr. Cogito identifies himself almost completely. If it was necessary, he would even be the horse for the carriage of the fugitive. Mr. Cogito would like to be the intermediary of freedom, to hold the rope of escape, to smuggle the secret message, to give the sign, to trust the heart, pure impulse of sympathy. But he doesn't want to be responsible for what will be written in the Freedom Monthly by bearded men of faint imagination. He accepts an inferior role. He won't inhabit history.